In the bustling city of Millfield, a tense courtroom drama unfolded as Judge Robert Thompson presided over a case involving Olivia Johnson, a young black woman. Olivia stood before the court, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination as she awaited the verdict that would determine her fate. Olivia had been accused of a minor offense, but due to her difficult financial situation, she had been unable to pay the fines associated with her case. She had pleaded with the court for leniency, explaining that she was a single mother working two jobs to support her family. However, Judge Thompson, known for his strict adherence to the letter of the law, remained unmoved by her plea. As he looked down at Olivia from his elevated position on the bench, Judge Thompson's eyes were cold and unforgiving. He believed that justice should be served equally, regardless of one's background or personal circumstances. In his mind, the law was the law, and it was his duty to uphold it without exception. With a stern voice, Judge Thompson announced his verdict. "Olivia Johnson," he declared, "I find you guilty of the charges brought against you. Furthermore, I am imposing a substantial fine as punishment for your actions. The court expects you to pay this fine in full within the next 30 days. Olivia's heart sank as she heard the judge's words. She knew that the fine would be an impossible burden for her to bear, given her already precarious financial situation. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized the gravity of her predicament. As the court adjourned, Olivia left the courtroom with a heavy heart. She felt overwhelmed and helpless, unsure of how she would navigate the challenges that lay ahead. Little did she know that her path would soon intersect with Judge Thompson's in the most unexpected of ways. Judge Thompson, meanwhile, left the courthouse feeling satisfied with his decision. He believed that he had upheld the principles of justice and that his ruling would serve as a deterrent to others who might consider breaking the law. However, he was unaware of the personal struggles that Olivia faced and the impact that his decision would have on her life. As he returned to his chambers, Judge Thompson's thoughts were interrupted by a phone call from his wife. She had been diagnosed with a severe illness, and the medical bills were piling up at an alarming rate. The news hit Judge Thompson like a ton of bricks, and he suddenly found himself grappling with the same financial pressures that Olivia had described in court. Desperate for help, Judge Thompson reluctantly agreed to attend a support group for individuals dealing with similar situations. Little did he know that this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge his beliefs, test his compassion, and ultimately transform his life in ways he never could have imagined. As Olivia and Judge Thompson left the courthouse that day, their paths seemed destined to diverge. However, fate had other plans in store for them. Their lives were about to become intertwined in a story of redemption, understanding, and the power of human connection. In the coming weeks, Olivia would struggle to find a way to pay the fine imposed by Judge Thompson, while the judge himself would confront his own biases and prejudices. Through a series of unexpected encounters and revelations, both Olivia and Judge Thompson would learn valuable lessons about empathy, forgiveness, and the true meaning of justice. And so begins a remarkable journey that will challenge assumptions, break down barriers, and prove that even in the darkest of times, hope and compassion can light the way forward. Word count: 770. As Olivia left the courthouse, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The hefty fine imposed by Judge Thompson loomed over her like a dark cloud, threatening to engulf her already fragile existence. She walked through the bustling streets of Millfield, her mind racing with thoughts of how she would make ends meet. Olivia's first stop was at her job as a waitress at a local diner. She had hoped to pick up extra shifts to help pay off the fine, but her manager informed her that business had been slow and there were no additional hours available. Feeling defeated, Olivia made her way to her second job as a cleaning lady at a nearby office building. As she scrubbed the floors and emptied the trash cans, Olivia's thoughts drifted to her two young children at home. She knew that she had to find a way to provide for them, but the mounting debt and the recent court ruling made her feel like she was drowning in a sea of hopelessness. Desperate for a lifeline, Olivia reached out to a local community organization that offered assistance to individuals in need. The organization, known as the Millfield Community Support Center, had a reputation for helping people navigate difficult situations and providing resources to those who were struggling. Olivia scheduled an appointment with one of the center's case workers, a kind-hearted woman named Valerie. As she sat across from Valerie, Olivia poured out her heart, explaining the details of her court case and the overwhelming financial burden that had been placed upon her. Valerie listened intently, her eyes filled with compassion and understanding. She had heard countless stories like Olivia's before, and she knew that the road ahead would be challenging. However, she also believed that with the right support and resources, Olivia could overcome this obstacle and build a better life for herself and her children. Together, Olivia and Valerie began to develop a plan of action. They explored various options, including payment plans, community service opportunities, and even the possibility of seeking a modification to the court's ruling. Valerie also connected Olivia with local organizations that provided assistance with food, clothing, and other basic necessities. As Olivia left the community center that day, she felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. She knew that the journey ahead would be difficult, but she also realized that she was not alone. With Valerie and the Millfield Community Support Center by her side, she felt empowered to face the challenges that lay ahead. Meanwhile, Judge Thompson was grappling with his own set of challenges. The news of his wife's illness had shaken him to his core, and he found himself struggling to maintain his composure both in and out of the courtroom. He had always prided himself on his ability to separate his personal life from his professional responsibilities, but now the lines were beginning to blur. As the medical bills continued to pile up, Judge Thompson found himself spending long hours in his chambers, trying to find ways to make ends meet. He had always been a man of means, but the mounting expenses were beginning to take their toll. One evening, as he sat alone in his office, Judge Thompson's eyes fell upon a flyer for a support group for individuals dealing with family members battling serious illnesses. The group, which met weekly at a local community center, promised to provide a safe space for people to share their experiences and find support among others who understood their struggles. Initially, Judge Thompson dismissed the idea of attending the support group. He had always been a private person, and the thought of sharing his personal struggles with strangers made him uncomfortable. However, as the weight of his situation continued to bear down on him, he began to reconsider. With a heavy heart and a sense of trepidation, Judge Thompson made the decision to attend the next meeting of the support group. Little did he know that this choice would set in motion a chain of events that would change the course of his life and the lives of those around him forever. Word count: 770. As the sun set over the city of Millfield, Judge Thompson found himself standing outside the community center where the support group was held. He hesitated for a moment, his hand resting on the door handle, as he contemplated the decision he was about to make. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, with chairs arranged in a circle. A handful of people were already seated, their faces etched with the same wariness and worry that Judge Thompson felt in his own heart. He took a seat near the back of the room, hoping to blend in and avoid drawing attention to himself. As the meeting began, the facilitator, a soft-spoken woman named Karen, welcomed everyone and encouraged them to share their stories. One by one, the participants began to open up about their experiences. They spoke of the challenges they faced, the fears they harbored, and the toll that their loved ones' illnesses had taken on their lives. Judge Thompson listened intently, surprised to find himself relating to the stories he heard. He had always viewed himself as a pillar of strength, a man who could handle any challenge that came his way. But now, faced with his wife's illness and the mounting financial pressures, he realized that he was not invincible. As the meeting drew to a close, Karen asked if anyone else would like to share. To his own surprise, Judge Thompson found himself raising his hand. He stood up, his voice trembling slightly as he began to speak. He told the group about his wife's diagnosis, the fear and uncertainty that gripped his heart, and the financial strain that had begun to take its toll. As he spoke, he felt a sense of relief wash over him, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. When he finished, the room fell silent for a moment. Then, a woman near the front of the room stood up and introduced herself as Valerie. She walked over to Judge Thompson and placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes filled with compassion. "I know how difficult this must be for you," she said softly, "but you don't have to go through this alone. We're here to support you in whatever way we can." Judge Thompson felt a lump form in his throat as he nodded, overwhelmed by the kindness and understanding he had found in this room full of strangers. As the meeting ended and the participants began to disperse, Valerie approached him once again. "I know we just met," she said, "but I want you to know that I'm here for you. If you ever need someone to talk to, or if there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out." Judge Thompson thanked her, feeling a sense of gratitude and relief wash over him. As he left the community center that evening, he felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he also realized that he had found a group of people who understood his struggles and were willing to support him through the darkest of times. Little did Judge Thompson know that Valerie, the woman who had offered him her support, was none other than Olivia's best friend and confidant. In a twist of fate, the two individuals whose lives had intersected in the courtroom were now connected in a way that neither of them could have ever imagined. As Judge Thompson returned home that evening, he felt a renewed sense of determination. He knew that he would have to face the challenges that lay ahead, but he also realized that he was not alone. With the support of his newfound friends and the love of his family, he believed that he could weather any storm that came his way. Meanwhile, across town, Olivia and Valerie sat together in Olivia's small apartment, discussing the events of the day. Little did they know that their lives were about to become intertwined with Judge Thompson's in a way that would challenge their beliefs, test their resolve, and ultimately transform their lives forever. As the weeks passed, Judge Thompson continued to attend the support group meetings at the community center. He found solace in the stories shared by others and the sense of camaraderie that had developed among the participants. Valerie, in particular, had become a constant source of support and encouragement, always ready with a kind word or a listening ear. One evening, after a particularly emotional meeting, Valerie approached Judge Thompson with a proposition. She explained that she had been thinking about his situation and believed that she could help him navigate the financial challenges he was facing. "I know it's not easy to accept help, especially from someone you barely know," Valerie said, her voice filled with compassion. "But I want you to know that I'm here for you, not just as a friend, but as someone who has been through similar struggles." Judge Thompson was taken aback by her offer. He had always prided himself on his independence and self-reliance, and the idea of accepting help from a stranger made him uncomfortable. However, as he looked into Valerie's eyes, he saw a depth of understanding and sincerity that touched his heart. With a heavy sigh, Judge Thompson nodded his head. "I appreciate your offer, Valerie," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how I can ever repay you for your kindness." Valerie smiled warmly, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "You don't have to repay me, Robert," she said, using his first name for the first time. "That's what friends are for." Over the next few weeks, Valerie worked tirelessly to help Judge Thompson navigate the complex world of medical bills and insurance claims. She introduced him to resources and organizations that he had never heard of before, and helped him develop a plan to manage his finances in the face of his wife's ongoing treatment. As they worked together, Judge Thompson began to see Valerie in a new light. He admired her strength, her compassion, and her unwavering commitment to helping others. He found himself looking forward to their meetings, not just for the practical assistance she provided, but for the sense of connection and understanding that had developed between them. One day, as they were reviewing a stack of medical bills, Valerie suddenly grew quiet. Judge Thompson looked up, concerned by the change in her demeanor. "Is everything okay, Valerie?" he asked, his brow furrowed with worry. Valerie took a deep breath, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and determination. "There's something I need to tell you, Robert," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Something that I should have told you from the beginning." Judge Thompson leaned forward, his heart racing with anticipation. "What is it, Valerie?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Valerie closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her courage. When she opened them again, they were filled with a fierce intensity. "The woman you sentenced in court, the one you imposed that heavy fine on," she said, her voice steady and clear. "That woman is my best friend, Olivia." Judge Thompson felt as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. He stared at Valerie in shock, his mind reeling with the implications of her revelation. "Olivia?" he repeated, his voice barely audible. "Your best friend is Olivia Johnson." Valerie nodded, her eyes never leaving his. "I know this must come as a shock to you, Robert," she said, her voice filled with compassion. "But I need you to understand the impact that your decision had on her life. I need you to see the human being behind the case number." Judge Thompson sat back in his chair, his mind spinning with the weight of Valerie's words. He had always prided himself on his impartiality and his commitment to justice, but now he was forced to confront the reality of the lives he had touched from his position on the bench. As he looked at Valerie, he saw the pain and the determination in her eyes. He realized that she had come to him not just as a friend, but as an advocate for the woman whose life he had forever changed. With a heavy heart, Judge Thompson knew that he had to confront the consequences of his actions. He had to find a way to make things right, not just for Olivia, but for himself and for the principles of justice that he had always held so dear. Judge Thompson sat in stunned silence as he processed the revelation that Valerie had just shared with him. The realization that the woman he had sentenced in court, the one whose life he had impacted so profoundly, was none other than Valerie's best friend, hit him like a ton of bricks. As he looked at Valerie, he saw the pain and the determination in her eyes. He knew that she had come to him not just as a friend, but as an advocate for Olivia, the woman whose life had been forever changed by his decision. "Valerie," Judge Thompson began, his voice heavy with emotion, "I had no idea. I never meant to cause such hardship for your friend. I was just doing my job, following the letter of the law." Valerie nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I know, Robert," she said softly, "but sometimes the law can be blind to the human stories behind the cases. Sometimes we need to look beyond the rules and see the people whose lives are at stake." Judge Thompson sat back in his chair, his mind reeling with the weight of Valerie's words. He had always prided himself on his impartiality and his commitment to justice, but now he was forced to confront the reality of the lives he had touched from his position on the bench. "What can I do, Valerie?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How can I make this right?" Valerie leaned forward, her eyes locked on his. "You can start by talking to Olivia," she said, her voice filled with determination. "You can hear her story, understand her struggles, and see the human being behind the case file." Judge Thompson nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of his responsibility. He knew that he had to confront the consequences of his actions, not just for Olivia, but for himself and for the principles of justice that he had always held so dear. Over the next few days, Judge Thompson reached out to Olivia through Valerie. He invited her to meet with him, not in the formal setting of the courtroom, but in a neutral location where they could talk openly and honestly. When the day of the meeting arrived, Judge Thompson found himself filled with a mixture of nervousness and determination. He knew that he had to face the woman whose life he had impacted, and he was prepared to listen, to learn, and to make amends. As Olivia walked into the room, Judge Thompson was struck by the strength and resilience that emanated from her. Despite the hardships she had faced, there was a fire in her eyes that refused to be extinguished. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Ms. Johnson," Judge Thompson began, his voice filled with sincerity. "I know that I have caused you a great deal of pain and hardship, and for that I am truly sorry." Olivia looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of insincerity. When she found none, she nodded, her voice steady and clear. "I appreciate your apology, Judge Thompson," she said, "but I need you to understand the impact that your decision had on my life. I need you to see me as a human being, not just a case number." Over the next hour, Olivia shared her story with Judge Thompson. She spoke of her struggles as a single mother, the challenges she faced in making ends meet, and the toll that the heavy fine had taken on her family. As Judge Thompson listened, he felt a sense of shame and regret wash over him. He realized that he had been blind to the human stories behind the cases he had presided over, and that his decisions had real and lasting consequences for the lives of those he had sentenced. "Ms. Johnson," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I am truly sorry for the pain that I have caused you and your family. I want to make this right, in whatever way I can." Olivia looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "What do you propose, Judge Thompson?" she asked, her voice guarded but curious. Judge Thompson took a deep breath, his mind racing with possibilities. He knew that he had to find a way to balance the scales of justice, to make amends for the harm he had caused, and to ensure that Olivia and her family could move forward with their lives. "Let's work together, Ms. Johnson," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Let's find a way to make this right, not just for you, but for all those whose lives have been touched by the decisions made in my courtroom." In the days following their meeting, Judge Thompson and Olivia began to work together to find a solution to the challenges she faced. They met regularly, sometimes with Valerie present, to discuss the options available to them and to develop a plan of action. As they talked, Judge Thompson began to see Olivia in a new light. He was struck by her intelligence, her resilience, and her unwavering commitment to her family. He realized that she was not just a case number, but a human being with hopes, dreams, and struggles of her own. Together, they explored various options for addressing the fine that had been imposed on Olivia. They looked into payment plans, community service opportunities, and even the possibility of seeking a modification to the court's ruling. As they worked, Judge Thompson began to feel a sense of purpose and determination that he had never experienced before. He realized that he had the power to make a difference in the lives of those who appeared before him in court, and that he had a responsibility to use that power wisely and compassionately. At the same time, Judge Thompson continued to attend the support group meetings at the community center. He found that the stories shared by others helped him to put his own struggles into perspective, and that the sense of camaraderie and support he found there gave him the strength to keep going, even in the face of his wife's ongoing illness. One evening, as he sat in the dimly lit room, listening to the stories of his fellow participants, Judge Thompson had a sudden realization. He stood up, his voice trembling with emotion, and addressed the group. "I want to thank all of you," he said, his eyes scanning the faces of those around him. "You have shown me the power of empathy, of compassion, and of understanding. You have helped me to see the human stories behind the cases that come before me in court, and you have given me the courage to make a difference in the lives of those I serve." As he spoke, Judge Thompson's eyes fell on Valerie, who sat in the back of the room, a small smile playing on her lips. He realized that she had been the catalyst for his transformation, the one who had helped him to see the world in a new and different way. Over the next few weeks, Judge Thompson and Olivia continued to work together to find a solution to her financial challenges. They developed a plan that involved a combination of community service and a more lenient payment schedule, one that would allow Olivia to meet her obligations without sacrificing the well-being of her family. As they finalized the details of the plan, Judge Thompson felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that he had never experienced before. He realized that he had the power to make a real and lasting difference in the lives of those who appeared before him in court, and that he had a responsibility to use that power wisely and compassionately. In the end, it was not just Olivia's life that had been transformed by their work together. Judge Thompson himself had undergone a profound change, one that had challenged his assumptions, tested his beliefs, and ultimately made him a better and more compassionate person. As he sat in his chambers, reflecting on the events of the past few months, Judge Thompson knew that he would never forget the lessons he had learned. He knew that he would continue to strive to be a better judge, a better husband, and a better human being, one who saw the world not in black and white, but in shades of gray. And he knew that he owed it all to the two women who had come into his life at a time when he needed them most. Valerie, the friend who had shown him the power of compassion, and Olivia, the woman whose story had challenged him to be a better version of himself. As he looked out the window of his chambers, watching the sun set over the city of Millfield, Judge Thompson felt a sense of hope and possibility that he had never known before. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he also knew that he was not alone. With the support of his friends and the love of his family, he believed that anything was possible. As the weeks turned into months, Judge Thompson and Olivia continued to work together to navigate the challenges that lay ahead. They met regularly, sometimes with Valerie present, to discuss the progress of their plan and to make any necessary adjustments. Olivia threw herself into her community service work with a passion and dedication that impressed everyone around her. She volunteered at local shelters, worked with at-risk youth, and even started a support group for single mothers struggling to make ends meet. As she worked, Olivia began to see the world in a new light. She realized that she was not alone in her struggles and that there were countless others who faced similar challenges every day. She found a sense of purpose and fulfillment in helping others, and she knew that she had found her calling. Judge Thompson, too, underwent a profound transformation. He began to approach his work on the bench with a new sense of empathy and compassion, taking the time to understand the stories behind the cases that came before him. He became known as a fair and just judge, one who looked beyond the letter of the law to see the human beings behind the case numbers. As he continued to attend the support group meetings at the community center, Judge Thompson found himself opening up in ways he never had before. He shared his own struggles and fears, and he found solace in the stories and experiences of others. Through it all, Valerie remained a constant source of support and encouragement for both Judge Thompson and Olivia. She was there to listen, to offer advice, and to remind them both of the progress they had made and the challenges that still lay ahead. One evening, as the three of them sat together in Olivia's small apartment, reflecting on the journey they had taken together, Judge Thompson turned to Olivia with a smile. "You know," he said, his voice filled with warmth and admiration, "when I first met you in that courtroom, I had no idea of the impact you would have on my life. You have taught me so much about strength, resilience, and the power of the human spirit." Olivia looked at him, her eyes shining with emotion. "And you," she said, "have taught me about the importance of second chances and the power of forgiveness. I never thought I would be able to move past the hurt and anger I felt that day in court, but you have shown me that anything is possible." Valerie, who had been listening quietly, spoke up then. "You have both taught me so much," she said, her voice filled with pride and affection. "You have shown me the power of friendship, of compassion, and of the human connection. I am so grateful to have you both in my life." As the three of them sat there, basking in the warmth and love of their friendship, they knew that they had been forever changed by the journey they had taken together. They had faced challenges and obstacles that would have broken lesser people, but they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than ever before. And as they looked to the future, they knew that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead together, armed with the strength and love of their friendship and the knowledge that they could overcome anything as long as they had each other. In the end, it was not just the practical solutions they had found that mattered, but the profound transformation that had taken place within each of them. They had learned to see the world through each other's eyes, to understand the struggles and triumphs of those around them, and to approach life with a new sense of empathy and compassion. As Judge Thompson returned to his chambers that evening, he knew that he would never forget the lessons he had learned or the friendships he had forged. He knew that he would continue to strive to be a better judge, a better husband, and a better human being, one who saw the world not in terms of winners and losers, but in terms of the common humanity that bound them all together. And he knew that, no matter what the future held, he would always have the love and support of the two women who had changed his life forever. As time passed, the friendship between Judge Thompson, Olivia, and Valerie only grew stronger. They continued to support each other through life's ups and downs, celebrating each other's triumphs and comforting each other in times of sorrow. Judge Thompson's wife, who had been battling her illness with grace and courage, finally began to show signs of improvement. With the help of her dedicated medical team and the unwavering support of her husband and friends, she slowly regained her strength and vitality. As she recovered, Judge Thompson knew that he owed a debt of gratitude to Valerie and Olivia. Without their friendship and support, he knew that he would not have had the strength to face the challenges that had come his way. Olivia, too, had undergone a remarkable transformation. Through her community service work and her support group for single mothers, she had found a sense of purpose and fulfillment that she had never known before. She had become a leader in her community, a beacon of hope and inspiration for all those who knew her. As for Valerie, she continued to be the glue that held them all together. Her compassion, her wisdom, and her unwavering commitment to her friends had been the foundation upon which their friendship had been built. One evening, as the three of them sat together in Valerie's cozy living room, reminiscing about the journey they had taken together, Olivia turned to Judge Thompson with a smile. "You know," she said, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm grateful for that day in court. If it hadn't been for that moment, I might never have met you or Valerie. I might never have found my calling." Judge Thompson nodded, his eyes filled with emotion. "I feel the same way," he said. "That moment changed my life in ways I never could have imagined. It taught me the importance of empathy, of compassion, and of looking beyond the surface to see the human being underneath." Valerie smiled, her eyes twinkling with warmth and affection. "And it brought us all together," she said. "Three people from different worlds, brought together by a moment of fate and bound together by the power of friendship." As the three of them sat there, basking in the warmth and love of their friendship, they knew that they had been forever changed by the journey they had taken together. They had faced challenges and obstacles that would have broken lesser people, but they had emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate than ever before. And as they looked to the future, they knew that they would face whatever challenges lay ahead together, armed with the strength and love of their friendship and the knowledge that they could overcome anything as long as they had each other. Years later, when Judge Thompson retired from the bench, he knew that he had left a legacy of compassion and justice that would endure long after he was gone. He had become known as a judge who looked beyond the letter of the law to see the human beings behind the case numbers. A judge who had the courage to make tough decisions, but also the wisdom to temper justice with mercy. At his retirement party, surrounded by colleagues, friends, and family, Judge Thompson looked out at the sea of faces before him and knew that he had been blessed beyond measure. He had been given the gift of friendship, the gift of love, and the gift of a life well lived. And as he raised his glass in a toast, he knew that he owed it all to the two women who had changed his life forever. Olivia, the woman whose story had touched his heart, and Valerie, the friend who had shown him the true meaning of compassion. To friendship, he said, his voice filled with emotion, to the power of the human connection, and to the two women who taught me the most important lesson of all, that in the end, it is not the law that matters most, but the love we share with one another. As the room erupted in applause, Judge Thompson knew that he had found his true calling, and he knew that, no matter what the future held, you would always have the love and support of the two women who had changed his life forever.